mortgage advice in a minute. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Barbara Clarice, Connecticut. I'm honored to have you here today, Barb. Barbara, let's just jump into things here. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into real estate.
So, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor. So, again, my name is Barbara Clarice, and I have been in real estate for a little over 22 years. Um, I like to say that I got into real estate by accident, but we know nothing in life is by accident, right? So, just a brief history, I actually worked as a legal advocate for a domestic violence agency, and I was unemployed, I think, for about a year. And one of the attorneys that I worked with and I knew from being in the courts introduced me to a couple, Mr. Vincent Bish. He is a real estate broker, and at that time, his wife was doing mortgages. So they needed a mortgage processor. So that's how I got into the business. I actually processed mortgages. And Mr. Bish offered to pay for my schooling. And here I am. Long story short, I took the classes, went, sat the exam, first time passed it, came in running. Mr. Bish, I passed. And here I am 22 years later, actually a
Oh,
little over 22 years. So, again, nothing by chance. I tell people, and if, my clients know me, this is not a job. This is my ministry. I love it. I love what I do. At this current time, there's nothing else I would rather be doing.
awesome, awesome. So, are you entrepreneurial by design? Did you inherit that from your family, or like how did you, decide, hey, I want to become this independent, entity, right? Like, how did that happen?
Funny you would mention that because, yes, when I look back and when I look at my mom, what she did, and when I look at my sisters, yeah, we are definitely an entrepreneurial family. My sister, from the time she was right out of school, she owned her hairdressing salon. My oldest sister, she's had so many businesses. So, yeah, I think we just have that spirit. I started my first business when I was probably around nine-ish.
Oh, wow.
You
Was it a
know,
lemonade stand?
Nope, similar. So, island girl living in Saint Lucia. My mom was traveling, and I'm always getting myself into something. I'm not waiting for anybody. I started making icicles, like
Mm-hmm.
putting it in the bags and selling it to the neighborhood kids. So, you know, yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Being from the islands myself, right, from Jamaica, I think that is kind of a cultural thing, right? Like, as I know, I had, newspaper routes and, selling encyclopedia with my dad, right?
Wow.
He had a landscaping business when I was younger, and I always, saw myself as a businessman, and I had a briefcase at 9 years old, and my kids had backpacks, right? So, uh, I definitely understand or can relate. So tell me, like, so been 22 years in the business. God, you must have helped a ton of families get into homes, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Over the years, I've put a lot of people into homes. I've seen a lot of families change their lives, change the trajectory of their life, their family lives, actually build legacies for themselves, their kids. So I tell people home ownership opens up so many doors. It's very tangible. And it's something that could just open so many doors, just buying one house. I have so many stories of families who came to me, didn't even think they could buy a home, and now they're on their second, third property. So, yeah, just even building businesses out of that. So many opportunities when it comes to home ownership.
Yeah, I think it's so important to kind of educate our community on the benefits of home ownership. I could, you know, just based on my experience, like my mom probably had a fourth grade education, right, and came to this country in 1979, I believe. worked as a maid for an extended period of time, and she ended up buying a home, sold that one, and then she moved to Florida and retired and bought a condo. So, and then when she passed away, luckily she had a ton of equity in that condo. We had to carry that for a little while, but we were able to sell it and then recoup the cost of, paying off the condo and then paying for the funeral costs that, the family and I had, had to endure during the time that after her passing.
Absolutely.
Creating that wealth piece is so important, especially in our community. Not a lot of us have life insurance, right, which is very important. So I think a lot of homeowners or potential buyers, or look at home ownership as, well, it's an expense, right? When you look at buying versus renting, there's pros and cons, of course, but there are so many benefits, right? Like if you're 30 years old right now and you're buying a home and you're paying it off by 65, by the time you retire, now that home could pay you back to live in it, right? Which is a benefit, as opposed to renting, whereas this that money's just gone, right? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, again, home ownership is not for everyone, right?
Mhm.
People say that. I think it's for everyone, but I do get it. There are some people, some lifestyles that, what, it's just not for me. I'm always moving. There are certain things. But I tell people, when you look at millionaires, when you look at their portfolio, most of them, if not all, have real estate as part of their portfolio, right? So we know that.
Right.
And my mentor, my first broker, Mr. Bish, he would always say, you have to live someplace, right? So go to work and you got to pay somebody. So you paying it. And right now, especially in Connecticut, rent is so high. You're literally paying somebody else's mortgage. You building wealth for somebody else. So why not go to work and why not pay your own and build wealth for you and your family?
Mhm.
So, it's just showing people a lot of time what I find, especially in our communities, is fear. And I always tell people, if you don't know, if you don't educate yourself, fear is just going to paralyze you and you're never going to make a move. Because then I start hearing the excuses, and every excuse that comes at me, I have a rebuttal. Because people will say, what if I lose my job? What if I can't pay the mortgage? What if I get sick? And you know what? I don't want to take care of a yard. I don't want to change a light bulb. All these excuses I hear. But when you sit down with people and you really educate them, it just opens up, their mentality, their mind, to the idea of home ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, there's a lot of fear in homeownership, and we have to address it, right? Because obviously, the client reached out to us, it reached out to you, that you connected them with me or a lender. So that's helping. That's them moving through their fear, right? So there's more to home ownership than that's, hey, listen, oh God, if I can't pay the mortgage, you're gonna take my house. Well, there's other processes there that um, you can negotiate with the lenders, and there's modifications that can be done to help you keep you in the home. The lender doesn't want to take your home, right? And so if
Right,
you want
that
to
part.
become right, they don't want to take your home, they don't want to become landlords. They're going to help you stay in that home.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
as opposed to renting, where like, they're going to kick you out, you're going to go through an eviction, you're going to have that on your record, etc. So
Exactly. I tell clients that all the time. I say, look here, a bank, you're probably going to be sitting, I've known people. I know someone personally who
mhm.
was under foreclosure for like 3 to 5 years.
Same,
Under
same,
foreclosure. The
same,
lender
yes.
never took her property. She's still in that home today. She's back on track.
Hmm.
Had she been rented, in 6 months she would have been out on the streets.
Yeah,
So
it's
when
simple.
people again is educating folks, so that they could understand there are avenues, and in life nothing is guaranteed, but you cannot let that fear of taking that step, paralyze you. I've had people, I had a close friend of mine, she came to me, never forget, she was like, you know what, I'm just thinking, think my credit's not so good, I'm just thinking of the idea, I don't think I'm ready to buy a house. Long story short, from the time she told me that, 2 months later I was handing her the keys to her first home, right? and she had no idea she could buy a home. And just having that conversation, and I try to remind folks it all starts here. The first step to home ownership is saying, thinking of it, thinking that, hey, I may want to do this, and taking the step and actually talking to somebody to see if it's possible. Because even
Right.
though it's not today, there are steps. If you're not ready now and having that conversation, we will prepare you to get there.
Yeah, it's all about, creating a plan for our clients, right? Whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or a year out, right? So it's best to get started and find out where you are, what you need to do to get there, right? Let me ask you this: what are you seeing in the markets right now? Because I know, inventories have been very tight here in Connecticut. Are you seeing more of a buyer's market right now, more of a seller's market? And do you work with more sellers, more versus buyers?
So right now in Connecticut, we're still in a very hot market. When economists talk about us, they talk about us as being this hot market. But we know, as us being in the market, we know it's a different thing, right? So
Mhm.
right now, Connecticut is still a seller's market. We still have low inventory and we still have high demand. So sellers are still looking pretty good out here. So the conversations I'm having are with my past clients, so folks who already own a home. Because the market is so high, we're having conversations like, what are you doing with your equity? So that wealth building part, right? We spoke about when you buy a home. It's not just buying the house and that's it. So the conversations are, what are you doing with that equity? Is it time to maybe buy a second home? Is there a business you want to start because you have so much equity in the house now? Why not use some of that equity to do something and build that legacy? So whether it's getting another property, whether you're thinking of going back to school, using some of that equity to do so, whether you're thinking of opening a business. I have a client, she just opened up a business. All this was from her equity in her home. So it's having those conversations. And yeah, if you're a seller out here, now is the time. If you're thinking, I'm going to be making a move within a year, now is the time to make that call and have that conversation, because once the market drops, you're going to lose that equity. So those are the kind of conversations. But we still have buyers out here and they're still
Use it or
buying.
lose it. Use it or lose
Right,
it.
exactly. Exactly.
Clients will call me and they're like, "Oh, I want to tap the equity in my house. I want to take this money out." Okay, cool. Well, this is what it looks like if you do a HELOC, right? Or a HE loan, and then this is what your payment looks like. Well, payment? Well, what do you mean? It's my money. I'm taking it out. No, that's not how it works. I have to explain to them how it works. So oftentimes there's a misconception there on how you can, how that equity works and how you can utilize it, right? It's a great financial tool, especially, during the refi boom. We helped a lot of clients consolidate debt, which is something you can't do when you are a renter.
Right.
You're not
Right.
building anything there, right? So that's another benefit, along with all of the tax benefits as well of purchasing a home. Let me ask you this, right? What does working with Clarice looks like, right, from a buyer's perspective?
Um, well, I'm the one who's going to guide you through the process. So when I meet with a client, one of the things I let them know is that I'm here to guide you through the process, to see you through and make sure that all the steps are really checked off. Um, I always tell my clients I'm a big communicator, right? So it's
Mhm.
all about communicating, making sure that the client understands. Look, I understand that this is one of the biggest investments someone is going to make. So
Mhm.
I don't take it lightly. So it's really educating the client, making them feel comfortable, making sure that they are well informed as to what it is they're doing, and literally guiding them from the beginning to the end. So from the time they think of it, make that call to the time they get the keys in their hand. And it still doesn't end there, right? Because I have clients who call me that I worked with in the beginning of my career, and we still have that relationship. I have clients who will not make a move without me. And I'm talking about people who purchased the home 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Mm.
They would still come to me for that advice. So, working with me, it's not just a business, it's not just a profession. We also become family, right? I have people, I go to their kids' birthday parties, christenings, I'm at weddings, I'm involved. So it's really guiding them through the process and making sure that they're comfortable. They know. I have folks that they get so comfortable, even in the process, they would have a mortgage broker, they would have the attorney tell them something, but before they make a move, I will get the call, Barb.
They're calling you to
Chance told
fact check,
me,
right?
yes. Chance told me, blah, 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 blah. Is that right? And then I have to reinsure them.
Right,
Chance is
right.
the mortgage expert. He knows what he's doing. So anything on the mortgage side, you want to do what Chance says. You want to take his advice. Same thing with the attorneys. The attorney, that's why, and that's why we build a team. But that's the kind of relationship that I build with my clients.
Hmm. I oftentimes tell the clients too. I said, listen, the relationship between yourself, your agent, and me, right? The loan officer is we were establishing a triangle of trust, right? So we have to lean on each other. There's an old saying where it takes a village, right? So throughout this process, that team is the village, and we're trying to, navigate them through the process. Let me ask you, what emotion do you like clients to walk away with, right? After they've worked with you on a home purchase?
Self-fulfillment and pride. Home ownership is pride, especially if you build in something, especially if you have a family, or you want to build that wealth, you want to see that future, is knowing that I'm part of that journey, whatever the journey is, because people go into home ownership for so many different reasons.
Hmm.
You could be single and going into home ownership. You could be, I've sold a property to someone in their 70s, buying their first home. So many reasons, but it's that pride, and it's that when you hand someone their first keys, it's just something that you have to experience it to kind of get it, right? You just feel that sense of accomplishment from them. So just knowing that I'm part of that journey is just an amazing feeling.
Mm, awesome, awesome. So let's jump into some expertise, right? Like, because I know, working with you, you know your stuff, right? You are a sharp cookie. So, like, would you say like your biggest strengths are, negotiation, market analysis, helping with staging, off-market access? Tell me a little bit more about what that looks like.
So I think I'm well rounded, because I've done this for so long, and because of my history. So I have the counseling history, which is what my degree is in, right? So I try to understand how the mind works and how people's emotion work. I put that in there. Then I did mortgages. So as a mortgage processor, we are a different kind of person, right? So when it
Yeah.
comes to details and making sure everything is checked off, I have that. And then negotiating, definitely. I feel like I am a very strong negotiator when it comes to that, making sure that I do what's in the best interest of my client and getting them what it is that they need for the job or for the deal.
Speaking of negotiating, could you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because oftentimes, I find that clients don't really understand the complexities there, right? Like what,
Yeah.
they think that realtors just open doors. They don't
Right.
understand the back end of things that you do. So could you elaborate a little bit more so they can get a better understanding of that?
Yeah, there's so much that we do, and I like that you say that people do think that we just open doors, and then We have social media and we have reality TV where, they're selling this and they're selling that. And people think negotiation is this, back and forth. But it's really intentional, right? So it's really catered to, it's not a one size fit all. It's not just, one glove that just fits everyone. It's very intentional, it's purposeful, and it's catered toward whatever that client's needs is. And negotiation isn't just going back and forth on something like price or, inspection issues, although we do all that. So we're negotiating the price for you, we're negotiating inspections for you. But a big part of it, which I feel like I have a good strength of, is how you deal with the agent on the other line. This is a relationship business, and a lot of people don't understand that. If the other agent on that line does not feel like you're a professional, don't think that you are trustworthy, don't feel like you're an expert in what you do, they're going to walk all over you. There's not going to be the respect there. And I think that people a lot of times miss that, right? I see so much stuff with agents and how they're portrayed on social media. And when choosing an agent, I don't think people understand how important it is, the professionalism of the agent that you're dealing with. What is it they're putting out on social media? How are they portraying themselves? Don't think that other agents are not looking at it. These are the people you have to work with. These are the people we have to work with. Even some situations where clients might want you to do a certain thing, but it's not the right thing to do for the deal. And it's not the right response because you're working with an agent that you're going to see again. Although the industry is big, it's very small. So a lot of times I have to explain to clients that I may not be able to do what you're asking me to do because I have to work with this agent again. It's not this nasty fight with agents. If an agent like you on the other end, you're going to get the deal. You're going to negotiate better. So that's a really big part that a lot of people just completely miss. And I see people, choose agents just because that person might be popular on social media or doing this. But are you really diving in to see what it is that they're putting out in their professionalism in the
Mhm.
industry?
Mhm. Yeah, I can definitely relate there. It's about reputation because oftentimes, if I have good relationships with agents, and I always try to keep things on the level and honest. If things are going bad, I let them know really quick, sooner rather than later. I don't like to drag things out because, again, that's your reputation. If you're known for not getting things done, not communicating with the other side will not accept your offers next time they see your pre-approvals come over. Being honest with your clients, like I had a client the other day, and I listen, we get paid on commission, right? That's how we make our money. However, we want to make sure that the client knows that we care more about them and the home that they're buying, versus just, hey, let's get you into a home so I can get paid, right? It's not about that. This was a conversation I had with someone. I said, listen, I want you to be in the right home, and I don't think this was the right one for you, right? And this is reasons why. On top of these reasons here, based on what I see going on with the home itself, I want to make sure that when I call you a year from now and I say, "Hey, how's things going?" How you have nothing but positive things to say, and you're excited, you're happy, your family's happy. You have a place of your own now, and the kids. It's safe for them, right? They have a place to play, and not have to worry about. It's all about safety, right? And that's fulfilling for me, versus, oh, I just want to get somebody into a house and get them and get a paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's big because I see it, right? And I always tell my clients, look, I'm going to tell you the honest truth about a home because we could cancel this one if it's not working and always get another property. And I'm always very intentional because that's who's going to come back to me in a year. I'm always tell them, hey, if you come back to me in a year, to say sell this property, I need to be able to sell this property. So I'm not going to advise you to get into something that I know might not be right for you or is not a right property. For example, I had a client, I sold them a property. They were moving from out of state. Sold her a property in Enfield. And, a few months later, the husband got a job, but it was all the way on the other side. And he had to go through 91, 84. It was just such a long commute. And I'm talking not even 6 months. Guess what? They called me to put that house on the market and find them another house. Had I put them in a property that was not sellable, I would have been in a real situation.
Hmm.
But thank goodness the market was going for them. And, I did not put them into something that was not sellable. We were able to put that on the market, sell it, even make a profit because the market was good, and get them into something else.
That's what we call forward thinking, right?
Yeah,
So you're thinking,
absolutely.
you're not just thinking now, but hey, let's. What if this happened? What if that happens? Right? I want to make sure that you're in something that is is sellable, right?
Yeah.
It has curb appeal. Worst case scenario, and again, it comes back to hey, the client being super happy with their purchase, because if in a situation like that, they do need to sell a home within a year or two. And oftentimes, when I get a client, I ask them this question: hey, how long do you see yourself in this home, right? And they'll tell me, well, it's going to be 6 years or 5 years,
Yeah.
well, listen, my job starts actually not now. It starts when we close, because if I can manage this debt for you and find you cheaper money, that's what I'm going to do. And then when you're ready to sell this house again, I'm going to make sure that I'm keeping in touch with you on an annual basis. And then we're going to come back to the team, would be in Barbara, myself, as the agent to help find them that next home, right? Um, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of my thought on that.
Absolutely right. And these are the reasons you have to be forthcoming. You have to be honest. I always let my clients know I'm the expert. This is what I do,
Hmm.
right? And I'm good at it,
So,
right?
speaking of you being the
So
expert,
I'm going
right?
to advise you in the right way. I've even gone as far, because that's how much I believe in doing the right thing, as far as having people sign documentation if they insist on something. Because at the end of the day, we have to do what the client wants, right? And you will get some times where the client is like, this is what I absolutely want. Even though you've told them that this are going to be the consequences, this is what they want. I've had clients sign documentation because I know it's going to come back. So I want that documentation so when it does come back, I could go back and say, hey, remember, this is what I advised you, and you still decided to go that route. So I've done that.
Yeah, let me ask you, who's behind the scenes? Like, do you have a team that helps to free you up so you can deal with clients better?
Yeah, so I do have some agents. So as a broker, I do have my own brokerage, Elite Legacy Realty. So I do have agents that help me out. They're doing their own thing. A virtual assistant who also helps, if paperwork, stuff like that. So I do have a team together where we work and make sure that, the client is well taken care of.
And I know, you're mostly focused in the capital area, which is Hartford County, but do you go outside of the Hartford County to say there's someone in New Haven that needs your services?
And I have agents all over. So
Okay.
I do have some agents that do take care of the New Haven side, Litchfield County. So yeah, we go wherever the clients are. We'll provide. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so it's nice to know that you have that coverage throughout the state, right? So
Yeah.
you can serve your clients.
Yeah.
So before we go, can you share, your contact phone number, your Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn handles, any website or for our audience so they can, get in touch once they're ready?
Yeah, so I keep it very simple. So I'm on all social media platforms as myself, Barbara Clarice. So very easy to find. Again, my company is Elite Legacy Realty, And my phone number is 860-833-0820. Again, it's 860-833-0820. So very, very easy to find. I do a lot in the community, so I'm out there. I'm very involved with my board. So, right now I currently serve as the vice president. So, hoping to move up to president elect. Wish me
Okay,
luck.
okay.
The nomination is already there, so it's just a matter of time. But I do a lot. It's not just selling. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. I was just in Washington, D.C. for legislative sessions where
Yeah.
we're talking to our congressmen. We met with Blumenthal, we met with Murphy, Larson.
Yeah.
So it's really talking to them and letting them know what's important to homeowners in Connecticut
Hmm.
and really getting those laws passed. So not just selling. Real estate is not just selling. We out there working for you guys. If you're in Connecticut, we are really out there working for you guys, making sure that the right laws are in place when it comes to home ownership. So one of the things that we were really pushing was the housing shortage in Connecticut and how we could address that. So some good stuff coming up, and
Was
I'm
there
very
any
proud to be
brilliant
part of
idea?
it.
Was there any brilliant idea? Any solutions to that?
Well, yeah, we were. I believe it's 6655 is the act. It's the 21st Century Act bill, and I believe that was actually passed while we were there.
Okay.
So good stuff. We're really making a difference when it comes to these bills and legislation and stuff that's put in place. So yeah.
Mm. It's interesting how legislation can open that up a little bit, right? So I don't think that you know the the population here in Connecticut understand how that affects the markets overall, right? I mean, if you look at interest rates, right? Interest rates will drive prices. It will drive demand uh, in so many ways, right? So, from a political perspective, right, with these changing laws and ordinances, can you go give a little bit more depth there? Or?
Well, for example, showing our legislators where we could maybe convert some of the commercial properties we have into condos,
Okay.
reducing tax liabilities for builders, so they now have incentives to build more properties instead of just building rentals. There are incentives so that they could build things like condos to make it easier for the builders.
Mhm.
Then you have things like conveyance taxes. What does that look like? So it's just so much when it comes to legislation. So these are some of the stuff. What are these incentives that we're doing so that we could have more opportunities for home ownership and more homes be built in the state?
Okay, got it. That's very insightful. I was actually recently in North Carolina. North Carolina, South Carolina, they have a ton of space to build, right? So they've been building like crazy down there, but now they have more supply than they do demand. So now it's
Right.
more shifted to a buyer's market. But when you look at in perspective to Connecticut, it's a little bit different because there's not a lot of space here in Connecticut to build. So what I've seen now from builders, they are putting up apartment buildings and what they're doing is managing those buildings for the next 10, 20 years, take advantage of that appreciation, and the money's coming in that's now paid for this project three times over, and then they sell it and make a bag of money at the end. Because if you compare that to say, okay, we're just taking this land and building four homes versus taking that same land and putting up 30, 40, 50 units. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a no-brainer. So
Yeah.
that's why I've seen that shift away from single-family homes towards these projects, whether it's condos or, um, you know, apartment rental complexes because they know that it's going to be more bang for their buck.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Miss Clarice, it's been a pleasure having you on, and I really appreciate your time, and
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. And we'll talk.